In this session, you're going to learn the components in the structure of a healthy small group ministry and how they work together. Bottom line, this is your job description. Now, before we jump into that, I want to read you Proverbs 21:5. In the Message version, it says, "Careful planning puts you ahead in the long run. Hurry and scurry puts you further behind." Now, can I just tell you, as someone who's been doing this for 35 years, hurry and scurry is always getting in the way. It is the tyranny of the urgent. If you don't put careful planning and understanding your structure to your small group ministry, then hurry and scurry are going to win out, and it's going to put you further behind in what your small group ministry is trying to do. So let's look at this diagram. I can tell you, after 35 years, this is your job description. I don't care what your church does. This is your job description. So let me unpack it a little bit for you. And I'm going to give you some corresponding chapters to help you in small groups with purpose that will help you go further in understanding what those components are. Now, on the far right, you're going to see a heart. And in that heart, you're going to see that it has a circle, even pie-shaped thing that talks about and symbolizes the balancing of the 5 purposes, the 5 verbs, and the Great Commission and the Great Commandment. That is Saddleback Church's end in mind. Remember when we were talking about the strategy and we were looking at the purpose-driven life and balancing the 5 purposes? That is our end in mind. That's what we want to produce in the tens of thousands of people who come to Saddleback Church. We want every one of them living a purpose-driven life. We want them to balance the 5 verbs of the Great Commission and the Great Commandment in their heart. And as I said, I got to look at it for me. You have to look at it for you. Now, next to that diagram right there, just write chapter 10, because in chapter 10 of Small Groups with Purpose, I go into it a lot deeper. Now, if that is our end in mind, then you're going to need a pathway to get to the end in mind. And if you don't have the pathway, it's like going on a trip without knowing your intended destination. You know, if I invited you over to my house and I just said, hey, come to Orange County, California, that would get you within about 3.1 million people of me. And if I said, oh, no, I'm sorry, you probably need more information than that. Come to the city I live in. And if I gave you the city, you would get, within about 40,000 people of me. And if I gave you my subdivision, that'd get you within about 273 homes. But what you would be trying to do is figure out, what is my exact address? Because you want to get to your intended destination. In the same way, your group leaders are saying, where's my address? And some churches say, Orange County, California. Some churches say the subdivision. Some get a little closer and just say the street. But you want the full address to get to the end in mind. Now, the pathway is what's going to get you there. And as you'll see, there's 2 circles there. Because when most groups start out, they're not balancing the 5 purposes. And when we talk about balance here, let me be clear. We take it as a verb. That word is a verb. As a verb, balance means to harmonize. And so we're wanting them to harmonize what's going on in their group. So when groups first start out, they're not doing all 5 of the purposes that God wants them to do. They tend to do fellowship. They're not really doing it that deep because they're thinking like coffee and cookies is fellowship. And they're kind of doing discipleship next because they're quote unquote doing a curriculum. But ministry, mission or evangelism, and worship are totally off the grid. So we have a pathway that explains to them, here is what fellowship means. Here are some ideas on that. Here's what discipleship means. Here are some ideas to accomplish that. Here's what ministry means. Here's what evangelism means. Here's what worship means and how to accomplish that. So we want to take groups from being out of balance to being balanced so that they produce our end in mind, which is the individuals in the group. Now, to go further on that, chapters 5 through 9 in Small Groups with Purpose will help give you clarification on what we mean by that. Also, in my book for small group leaders, Leading Small Groups with Purpose, I not only give clarification from the eyes of the group leader, but I give about 200 ideas in that book of practical things that they can do in each one of these purposes. So now that's the pathway there.